from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on Ag Day, USDA offers up its net farm income forecast for 2018, plus a record year for red meat exports. And agribusiness building a marketing plan.
What road are you going to take? Are you going to take what worked really between 2015 and 2017?
Protein power, the benefits of using beef in a heart-healthy diet, and catch a flight and a bushel of veggies from this unique airport farm.
Ag Day, brought to you by the Chevy Silverado, the most dependable, longest-lasting full-size pickups on the road.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. USDA Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue calls the ag economy fragile, and the agency's latest net farm income forecast says 2018 could be the industry's worst in more than a decade. USDA rolling out its expectations for 2018 on Wednesday. It anticipates net farm income, a broad measure of profits, to decrease nearly 7% from 2017 to $59.5 billion. Now, that would be the lowest net farm income number since 2006. Net cash farm income is also forecast to decrease down about 5% to $91.9 billion, or the lowest level since 2009. Now, if you adjust the number for inflation to level the playing field over time, 2018 forecast would stack up as the worst year since 2002. Now, net farm income has declined roughly 50% over the past 4 years.
By and large, a safety net is really the goal of the Farm Bill, as well as providing for those who don't have the resources for enough food, but there are a lot of challenges out there. You've got lower commodity prices, as we well know, and
USDA's ERS arm releases farm income estimates and forecasts 3 times a year in February, August, and November. One of the bright spots in the farm economy has been in the cattle sector, and exports are a big reason. The U.S. Meat Export Federation just releasing its year-end figures of beef and pork shipments. USMEF says 2017 was a record-breaking year. Beef export value surpassed the $7 billion mark. Last year's totals were 2% higher than the previous high set in 2014. And pork exports surpassed the previous year's volume record. Pork exports totaling 2.4 million metric tons in 2017, breaking the 2016 record by 6%.
What's more exciting is our economists are forecasting going into next year that we're looking at 6 to 8% additional growth on top of this record this year. So we're excited. There's a lot of opportunity out there. We just have to harvest it.
USMEF says Japan was the leading market for U.S. beef, and demand is not waning, volume climbing 19% year over year. Strong trade has helped ease some of the pressure on falling commodity markets, but today there are fresh threats from some of America's biggest buyers. New reports out of China that its leadership is studying soybean trade with the U.S., including starting anti-dumping and anti-subsidy probes. Now, according to Bloomberg, its Ministry of Commerce has been looking at the possibility of taking measures since January. Now, this follows revelations earlier this week that Chinese leaders are doing the same in the sorghum market. China imported nearly $14 billion worth of U.S. soybeans last year. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce is yet to comment on a soybean inquiry. Back in Washington, fresh challenges to EPA's latest WOTUS decision. Democratic attorneys general for 10 states plus the District of Columbia are suing the administration for delaying enforcement of the WOTUS rule for 2 years. American Farm Bureau Federation President Zippy Duvall speaking to the Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works. He's calling for bipartisan cooperation in reducing overregulation, including the Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, and the Administrative Procedures Act. He cites those 3 laws as examples that need reform. Duvall says it's impacting the future of the business.
The 2 issues that have come up at almost every farm that I've visited were the lack of adequate legal supply of labor and the burden of overregulation on their farms. Regulatory process today is a product of decades of administrative and judicial decisions without much effort to integrate these decisions into a system that makes sense to all of us.
Also from Washington, the USDA announcing it's delaying a federal milk marketing order in California. USDA stopping any further rulemaking as it evaluates whether the administrative law judge who oversaw the 40-day hearing was legally appointed. The Supreme Court is expected to rule on a similar unrelated case this term, which ends June 30th. Mike Hoffman taking us out to farm country, the look at weather and today's crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. Well, Denny of Washington, Iowa is showing us he's filling up another load today to haul to the feed mill a mile down the road. Well, Denny looks like snow won't leave anytime soon. There's a possibility for more in the forecast for the rest of this week. And Jeremy Rowe over in Shickley, Nebraska is giving us a glimpse of chores. The feedlot operator says it's just plain cold outside. Jeremy says his area received 5 inches of snow as of Wednesday morning. That's 10 inches only for the year. And taking a look at the wind speed forecast, you can see it's going to be windy as this storm system moving through the northern Rockies moves through. A little bit of wind occasionally farther east, but most of it's going to be with that storm. Tomorrow then that spreads into the central plains states with a fair amount of wind. And as we head through the day tomorrow, though, that will continue to spread southward just a little bit. We'll have your forecast as we head through the rest of this week coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
Ever wake up wondering what does today's weather have in store? Well, with weather updates, it delivers the local forecast right to your cell phone each morning to make preparing for the day easier. Just text Weather 6 to 31313 to get started.
Low prices, global trade uncertainty, winter dryness, all of this making for challenging marketing decisions. We have some helpful ideas next in analysis. And later, solar farms are all the rage, but this airport's found a way to keep farming between the arrays. In agribusiness, did a grain rally continue on Wednesday? We get details now from the floor of the CME in Chicago.
The wheat market was sharply higher here on Wednesday. We've had a string of higher closes in the wheat market, and we posted some fresh multi-month highs in these contracts. As a matter of fact, intraday, the Chicago wheat market, I believe in spot month contracts, posted its highest trade since September. Kansas City, the highest trade since July in some of those futures contracts. So a very strong trade here. We've seen volatility return to financial markets really across the board, everything from the stock market to the treasuries to a lot of the commodities. And I think we're starting to see that a little bit in the grain markets here. I think funds are covering shorts in this wheat market. I think that we're seeing an increase in volatility and maybe even some speculative buying. So there's a lot of money changing hands here this week in particular. Again, Joe Vac from CME Group here in Chicago.
Here at the Agribusiness Desk, we have John Payne. He writes a newsletter this week in grain and oil seeds. John, let's talk about building a marketing plan for 2018, because I think as we just saw over the last week, we had, this little mini rally, weather rally or whatever in soybeans or corn, and then it's over in a couple of days or pulls back in a couple of days. I mean, we're these little tiny pockets of time to actually do something.
Right, and I think that's really what you have to sit down and decide is what road are you going to take? Are you going to take what worked really between 2015 and 2017, these last 3 years, where any rally should be sold, and you wait for that summer move and you move it all, and then reality, try to buy it back if you're trying to play at both sides come the fall. This is a little bit of a different year we're finding with the dollar being as weak as it is. You have domestic demand in the U.S. fantastic. You have export demand that is improving weekly in corn. Soybeans are a little bit of a different story, but again, we still have to grow it. And given that the price action I think is there, the potential for rallies, much like we've seen in cotton, the stock market, crude oil. I mean, these commodities that have had bearish fundamentals, all of a sudden they don't have as bearish fundamentals, and we find ourselves 20, 30% higher. If you find yourself selling on these small little rallies, you have to be able to sell onto the big ones. Okay. So my point being is, if you're using something like the futures market, or if you're using margin positions where you need to have money represent those positions, you need to find yourself being able to handle that. And that's getting with professionals and getting with people who can set expectations, because what we saw a year ago and happened in corn was when those rallies come, those folks tend to want to get out because they're taking heat in those positions on the hedges. So it's again, set expectations, be ready for the rallies, and when they come, you got to have more than one bullet to fire at the market.
Yeah. Are you talking about percentages? Do you like to look at this as like a percentage game, like I'm going to be so much before planning and during and after, or how far out are we looking at and how big?
Well, I think much of it depends on if it cash flows or not. So, you know, to say I'm going to market 20% of my crop at a loss before I put it in the ground is probably something I wouldn't advise you to do. But if it's profitable, I think you need to look to move and then use the tools that are there. You know, and especially in a market like corn, volatility is so low. I mean, it's the cheapness of call options, whether you like the popularity of them or not, are very attractive for us because you can buy them now, essentially have insurance on the top side, so that when that rally does come, you can sell into it.
All right. Well, it's good perspective, good insights. Thank you, John. We'll be back with more Agday in just a minute.
To find John's newsletter, This Week in Grain and Oilseeds, head over to www.thisweekingrain.com. Agday, brought to you by Prosaro Fungicide from Bayer.
Welcome back to Agday. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman here looking at the weather map, and it sounds like there's another weather maker across the northern plains coming.
Yeah, it's going to be a narrow band, but it's going to be some heavy snow because it could last 24 hours in some areas, and so that's something we'll be watching over the next couple of days. And that's the storm system right now over Montana, moving into the western Dakotas. This is the one that's going to lay a strip of heavy snow across parts of the north central plains into the lower Great Lakes, the way it looks. Right now this morning, though, still a cold front moving into north central Florida. A few showers, thunder showers with that, just popping up perhaps south of that front, but that shouldn't be any big deal across Florida. High pressure, chilly high pressure moving through the mid-Atlantic states. And there's the snow by later today into northern Iowa, southern Minnesota, across South Dakota, southern North Dakota, still back into Montana. Now watch how this gets just stretched out all the way from the northern Rockies into the southeastern Great Lakes by tomorrow morning. So a large area of snow with this whole system. And as we head through the day tomorrow, that just continues to be a 4 or 5 statewide strip of snow kind of moving through. But it's going to really be right through that I-80 corridor the way it looks. That will be getting the heaviest snow as we head through the next couple of days. That's by late in the day tomorrow. The snow will be moving into parts of New England by then. Scattered showers in the southeast with a stalled out front across northern Florida. Take a look at precipitation estimates past 24 hours. Most of it's been in the southeast and up into New England with the system coming into Montana, adding in the next 36 hours in. We don't add too much more in the southeast. A little bit more in the northeast, but it's really just that one storm system moving across the plains into the lower Great Lakes, and most of that is going to be in the form of snow. Already had a fair amount of snow and over the past 24 hours from Pennsylvania into New England and also in the northern Rockies. Adding in the next 36 hours, once again, it's mainly going to be with that one storm system, and our computer model is showing 8 to 12 inches perhaps in parts of that area through the lower Great Lakes. So we'll be watching that one. High temperatures this afternoon, single digits and teens in the far northern states, 50s and 60s by the time you get into the southern plains and the southeast. Lows tomorrow morning below 0 again behind that next cold front in the far northern plains, 30s all the way down into northern Georgia. And rather mild in the southeast tomorrow afternoon, but very cold air once again coming into the northern plains, all because of the trough in the east. You can see how, though, the southeast, you get a southwest flow at times over the next several days. The cold air will kind of linger through the northern tier of states, but with a split flow like this, the southeast, you end up on the warm side next week. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Heading to Salem, Oregon, first of all, cloudy and rather cool, high of 57 degrees. Newton, Kansas, sunny and milder during the afternoon hours, high up to 56. And finally, Florence, South Carolina, partly sunny and chillier, high 56 degrees.
All right, when we come back, national reporter Betsy Gibbon joins us with a special report on the nutrition profile of beef. And if you enjoy vegetables at this airport, there's a good chance they're local, very local.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com. While you are focused on raising the world's most nutritious beef, your checkoff is opening doors and telling consumers why beef is always a great choice. Visit mybeefcheckoff.com to learn how else your checkoff is opening doors.
February is Heart Month, according to the American Heart Association, and it says heart disease is the #1 leading cause of death for both men and women in the U.S. Yet even as more people focus on a heart-healthy diet, there's uncertainty about proteins, including beef. Betsy Gibbon reports.
At that point in time,
Katie Wright sits quietly among producers, watching the show arena at the National Cattlemen's Convention and NCBA trade show.
we just have to change the way we do things.
The young mom, no stranger to the ranch.
I grew up in this, and talking about the benefits of beef or why we think it's the best protein in the world was a common dinner time conversation.
Still eager to learn more.
Those are gram-negative bacterial vaccines.
I think the live handling demonstrations are interesting because you can always learn something.
Not everyone has their seat with a view of the beef industry. Dietitians say the U.S. is becoming a more health-conscious society, seeking nutrition, but not sacrificing great-tasting food.
In general with nutrition, because it's such a hot topic, we see a lot of misinformation out there. So we see some myths being recurring about beef.
McNeil says some may not know beef has iron, zinc, and B vitamins. However, the #1 question the scientist and dietitian gets asked: can beef be part of a heart-healthy diet?
And that always surprises me because it's the area of research that we have the most scientific evidence for. Research study after research study show that you can eat beef even every day and lower your cholesterol.
This is why. McNeil says 25 grams of protein is the amount recommended by researchers to keep you full meal to meal. That's about the size of 3 ounces of beef. Compared to other protein sources, it's a lot of protein and fewer calories.
A lot of moms I know, they'll think, well, I want to put peanut butter on toast in the morning. But you'd have to eat 2 to 3 times the amount of calories of peanut butter to get the same protein that you're getting from beef. And beef is high quality protein.
There are more misconceptions about lean beef, something the Beef Checkoff is trying to answer. Questions like whether plant-based proteins are better for your health.
But a lot of people don't realize that meat proteins like beef, they have about half the calories to get all the same protein and a lot of nutrition.
Another misconception? Do Americans consume too much protein?
And when it comes to beef, we're eating beef right within the recommended levels that American Heart Association recommends or that the dietary guidelines. So beef is actually one of those things we're getting right. It's the fruits and vegetables and all that we need to be eating more of to build a balanced plate.
Or is beef a primary source of fat?
Fat is not what we once thought it was. It's good to have some fat in your diet. And half of beef's fat is actually monounsaturated fat, the same kind of fat found in olive oil.
Though moms like Katie may be familiar with the benefits of beef,
To actually read the research and know that it's actually proven by science. It's nice to know that you can say, it's not just a feeling, it's not just a lifestyle, but it's proven by research that it is healthy for you.
she wants to keep learning.
I like to network and learn new things, and you can always do that no matter how old you are.
Reporting for Agday, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
Up next, we'll see how one airport is sustainable by powering its own facility and its own people in the country. Next.
Ag Day, brought to you by Top Third Ag Marketing, Farmer First with a plan for every market. In the Country, sponsored by Kubota, tractors, hay tools, utility vehicles, mowers, and more. Visit KubotaUSA.com today.
Well, you may not get your luggage if you fly into Kochi International Airport in India, but you can get a bucket full of vegetables. The airport now offering passengers and employees the chance to buy organic vegetables grown on airport grounds. The airport built rows upon rows of solar panels to meet national energy guidelines, and so instead of letting the land under the sun grabbers go to waste, they decided to grow vegetables under and near the panels. Now, last year, they grew 40 tons of vegetables.
We produced last year almost 40 tons of vegetables, and that too organic. We don't use any weedicides or pesticides for the purpose. Secondly, this year, we anticipate the production should be about 80 tons of vegetables, and that too organic. We normally sell it to our employees. We have approximately 8,000 people who are working in this airport. And we have almost 30,000 people who are using this airport as travelers. Whatever is left beyond what is purchased by the employees, we sell it to the travelers also.
The fresh vegetables and fruits are sold near the arrivals area at the airport. About 30,000 passengers pass through the airport daily. Another 8,000 work there. The airport director says they do not use herbicides or pesticides on the crops. So that's all our time this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Spend part of your day with us. From all of us here at Agday, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day in farm country.
Agday, brought to you by Ram Commercial, America's longest lasting heavy-duty pickups.